So you want to learn how to build a life-size statue, like my buddy here, Squirtle, and Scott, the Cyclops Summers? Stay tuned on this episode of Make It Nerdy. I'm going to break down how I make specifically Scott here from start to finish on everything from where I got it from, the material, the time it takes to make it, and also the pitfalls of the model and how I went about making Scott here. So without further ado, let's dive into this episode of Make It Nerdy. All right, so before we start talking about how I went about doing everything, I want to talk about all the pitfalls. I want to let you know there are some things that went about this that I wish I would have done differently. Again, I was in a rush to get it, pretty much. I wanted it to be done because I actually had a convention coming up after this, coming up in the near future that I want to be able to have this ready so I can bring it to conventions, that I could have it, showed at shows at a distance. It looks really good. But if you zoom in, I'll probably zoom in with the thing. Over here, there's a big, the layers over here, because the way that part was printed. So when you're setting up your files to print, it does matter the orientation. And we'll go into on the screen in a second about the orientation of all the prints. Because once you change the orientation of a part, the way the light hits, or also the way the bumps are. So like over here, it kind of looks like he has a nipple there, like right there, which is kind of funny. And now you'll always see it as a nipple here. This part, if it was printed in another orientation, you wouldn't have this because all these other parts were printed horizontally like this. This part was printed the way it was printed. It's showing layers over here, showing the layers as a vertical here, right? They're all, this would be the top, and then the back of his middle of his back would be the bottom part, right? So that's one of the things. Also, there's some parts here all over the place. You'll see that the orientation is different depending on, I think it was an auto flip, and I just was setting print. A lot of the part was making sure like I wasn't using too much supports. A lot of the holes that are part of the joining parts of the model, you don't have to use supports in there. Just, it's such a small overhang for the support, for the hole where you put your pegs in there. You don't even need to use support. So if it's a plain flat file that just needs, straight printing straight up, I would just take the supports off of that. It's not a lot, but it starts adding up, right? The visor here, I think I printed this visor, I don't know, 4 or 5 times. So on top of getting the right yellow, I think I went through 3 different yellows before I finally settled on this yellow. This was a really bright yellow. I forget the name of it, so I'll put the name down below, and I also have a link down below as far as you can grab this color. The visor itself, the original visor itself, when I downloaded the files from Yosh, when I downloaded the files from Yosh, they did not have it slotted for the lights. Even though it on the renders that I was showing, it showed that there was a slot for the lights, but they failed to upload those files. So I went ahead and quickly printed the files, only to realize after the fact that those are the wrong files. On top of the file for the head, was flush, did not give it any room for the lights. And when I finally went and messaged the guys on Yosh and say, hey, you're missing the files here, so you had to re-upload the files and everything else. Actually, I just noticed now the head isn't set correctly. So there we go. That's set correctly, right? So to access the lights, I left this unglued. So the top of the head is unglued. I can go ahead. There's a little battery pack in here. Let me try to reach in there, which I can easily get to. There's the battery, 3 AA batteries that are in there, and that sits nicely in there. Only after I had to do a little cutting, and we'll zoom in there in a second. show you about that. So now I can easily access this. The lights are fastened there, the visor, everything else. Pretty much everything else is fastened with the exception of this piece back here, because the file actually had to cut this, so we'll probably hopefully zoom that in there. I had to go ahead and cut this part there because it did not fit correctly to the slice. So it will, if I was to put this somewhere and secure it and leave it in place, I would then probably glue this in place, but I'm going to be transporting this, so I'll probably go ahead and put something there where I can easily take it off and put it back on. So now for the head goes right back on top. There's you'll see there's pegs on top of here. These are the holes where all the pegs. Again, when you go ahead and are gluing all the parts together, you see there's a whole bunch of holes. You don't need to put a peg in every hole. If you go ahead and use 3 pegs in opposite directions, that's more than enough to line up your parts. So that way you don't have to worry about having that many pegs. Again, they're small, so if you want to go ahead and print enough pegs to fill all the holes, by all means, go ahead and do that. But I'm cheap. Not so much cheap as so much that, I'm poor and it comes out of my pocket. So that goes into place right there. Pretty much all the parts were printed as they were cut. The only part I had to go ahead and cut myself were the top part of the trunks. It just was not fitting on the build plate. I'm using the biggest printer I have working is my K2, so that's a something build plate size. I forget, so I'll put it there. So I have to cut it in bamboo slicer and cut that off in there. And then the other part is the belt here. Because the way this sits, I cannot have this here in place. Otherwise, the top of the body won't sit flushly. So in order for me to be able to have the body sit flushly into place, I leave this off, and then once I've set this in place, I go ahead and put the buckle on place there. Now that we went over all the downsides and the pitfalls of the model, let's dive into actually putting this thing together. Here's what it looks like in the top of the head. As you can see, I went ahead and cut out a whole bunch of stuff so that way I can fit a battery pack here in place. I went ahead and used the lights when it did the soldering. There's 2 lines. If you look, you know what, let's turn this off so you can probably see it better. Nope, that made it worse. Let's put the lights back on. Okay, so you can see there's 2 strips in there. The original one I was using was the LEDs, but they wound up having like big old dots. This COD LED strip is a lot better. You can see the one continuous line. It makes it a lot better for the visor effect. If I was to do this again, I would probably go ahead and pre-cut this. Size everything, and then pre-cut this in the slicer. Get this neatly, as opposed to seeing as gobbledygook. But it's not the end of the world here. Well, here we go. Not the end of the world here. Yeah, Yash definitely needs, or whoever designed this definitely needed more room for a battery pack. When you're using the pegs that you see, I don't use all the slots. I just need enough to line it up, and then this sets in place, and then I can access the battery pack, turn it off and on as I need to. And if you can get one that's remote operated, even better. That way you don't have to take the head on and off. But that was the one I used. And the original lighting system I had with the LED came with a remote. That way I could, secure it. But then you still need to be able to access the battery pack, right? So either way, save your money. If you don't need to spend money on the remote option, just use this, turn the lights off, put the head back on, and that way that would be the visor lights. All right, so now we're going to get down to the nitty gritty of where I got the files from and all the material that I sourced it for you get this color, nice blue and the yellow and the orange. The red is terracotta because it was terracotta that I used. So we're going to jump into it. So as you can see, this is Yash Studios pictures here. This is the rendering that he sends or supplies with the files. So you have this here, and we're going to X out of that, and we're going to show you, if you go to Yash Studios on his Patreon, I thought he had an Etsy shop, but apparently he doesn't. I can't find it anymore. So if you go to Yash Studios on Patreon, you go to Patreon here, and then just search for Cyclops. This will be the first one here. You have all the files here, and I think you can purchase it.
Yeah, I believe you can purchase it or just join the membership because the membership is pretty awesome. I don't get paid to say that, so if you do sign up for it, just give him a shout out to let him know Make It Nerdy sent you his way. Yeah, there we go. So then you would get the files as you can see here. We go through these files here. It shows you uh, all the his cheeks and everything. It's just, file's really good. Everything split up to fit on a size of a bill plate of a 256 bill plate for a bamboo, like a P1S or A1 or anything that's a 256. So that's that. As far as so, let's go into the material. So you got the blue and the yellow, and the terracotta. So we got the beige, right? So as far as material goes, oh, there we go. This is the yellow I used, right? As you can see, I purchased it 2 times, right? I purchased some more of it. This is Bamboo Lab 3D printer filament. Yeah. So I'll put the link down below as far as the exact one. You can just click on the link there, and it'll bring you to the color. I purchased all the other yellows from Bamboo, and I don't think I've gotten this yellow. So, which is kind of weird where it says filament for Bamboo Labs 3D printer, but it's yellow. It's some kind of generic yellow, but it wound up being really good for the Cyclops. Next, we'll go to blue. The blue is Sunlose Blue. So, just regular blue. I just told you I'm recording. Yeah, we use Sunlu Blue. It's just plain old blue, nothing crazy. Oh, here we go. Klein Blue is what it's called. Um, you can, if you can get the reusable spools. I have a lot of Sunlu spools holders that I purchased over the times of printing. So if you can get the refillable one, I think when I originally purchased it, I purchased it on Timu, believe it or not, and it was still Sunlu's blue, right? Then I was able to get the reusable packs and just throw them onto the spools. So that way, I didn't pay actually $19.99. I paid a little bit cheaper, but you do what you can. And then for the light, I use these COD lights. They're called COD lights. Yeah, Cob. Excuse me, Cob. COB LED light strip. So what you have to do is, and I'll show you a little bit later about you have to pretty much cut the lights, and then resolder these strips, these little not diodes, whatever the linking parts. You have to solder those so that way you can overlap them. But we'll talk more about that later. And then as far as glue goes, for the most part, Gloop. If you haven't heard of this, 3D Gloop. Here's your information. This is your PSA. Get PLA 3D Gloop or glue, and it's pretty expensive. $3.50 for 4 ounces. Excuse me, $35 for 4 ounces. You want to go really big and go get this one, and you get almost $77 right there. So you have this is for the most part for what I used. I used the whole entire bottle, and I still needed to jump to some Loctite crazy glue to finish it up because I went through this whole bottle. So yeah, so I went to that. So for his hair, I wound up using. I had this terracotta for another project I was working on, and it seemed to have matched it perfectly. So I came over here a little while ago, and I was looking for colors to order, and it was out, but apparently it's back in. So I'm gonna add this to my cart for later on. Anyway, so there's that. And then as far as the red and the black here, I use whatever red I have. Something that's nice and bright red. And then black, just basic black. I have Sunlu black mostly on hand, so that's that. And then the his skin tone. I know a lot of people mention on some of my videos, TikTok or Instagram, they're like he seems washed out. I mean, it's hard to get good skin tone colors. So unless you go ahead and paint them, let's see, desert tan. For his skin, I just had this beige. I mean, it's pretty light. So unless you want to go ahead and just at least paint his face a little bit and get that darkened up or add a little color to it, it's kind of, as my wife would say, blanco. Um, Obviously, you don't want to do white. That's crazy. But yeah, beige. Get some other beige or find another color that would suit your purpose. I don't know what to tell you. There you go. And now we're going to jump over to the fun part of this. The setup, which I found out through this whole video setup and tutorials planning for this. You could only fit up to 36 plates at one time before you run out of plates, and then you have to set up another section. So the files, when you see the files, they're broken up as far as body parts, head parts, and feet and legs and all different parts. Go ahead and set up your build plates, and then you'd have one build plate over here. These are connecting parts. If you have multiple spots that have a lot of like pegs, say like this one here, you don't need to fill all the pegs. Just, I mean, if you want to, go crazy, but you don't necessarily. If you put a peg there, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? You just need those pegs because it lines up, or 3, 1, 2, 3, something. I would put these corners because that would make sure the corners line up. But for the most part, you don't have to use all these. So you like this, 1, 2, that's plenty there. You don't need that one. So it's not a lot in the grand scheme of it, but every little bit counts, I guess, right? Obviously here you need 2 pegs there. Something, long as they have 2 opposing sections, so that way when you put them together, they don't shift around. If you put 1, it's going to shift around. So you need the 2, right? Okay. So sorry for harping on that too much. How many pegs I actually use, I have no idea. I think I had extra pegs. It was like an IKEA project. So print a whole bunch, and if you need more, print some more. All right, I'm gonna tell you. Let's move on. As far as the files goes, if you did an auto set on your build plates, they're not always the same. So as far as when initial part of the video where I printed this file, I think I printed it on this bottom here, and that's why I was able to get those lines where you saw those on the model itself. Rearrange this now so you can see how it should be printing, except for this part here. This one should probably really be printed kind of like meow. But then you have this weird setup here. You have to you'll have all supports there, and yeah, it's gonna be weird, but that way. So that's why I just position it like that. Yeah, I mean, as far as this one goes, every other part could print in an orientation where you'll have matching layer lines, right? So everyone on here can be printed on a P1S. Now, if I go over to the trunks, so the trunks are red, right now, but they're obviously they're yellow. So I'm going to give you a little trick to keeping track of how many parts you've printed or which parts you printed. So whatever they normally are, I put them to the normal color, right? And as I go ahead and print that part, I would change it to a different color. And I'd be like, okay, now it's red. Now I know I printed those parts, right? The trunks came in 3 parts. It came in 1, 2, and then this was 3. This was combined, right? I had to go ahead and slice it and create my own pegs here because even on H2S, it did not fit. I probably could have fit it on my K2, but my K2 is crap and it's been down for months. So here I am, and my biggest build plate right now is a H2S. I do have a Neptune 3 Max, which I could have printed on, but it probably would have taken, 3 times as long. So, and I would have to move it out of, underneath the shelving for storage where it's stored now. So anyway, I went ahead and cut this on the diagonal. It's pretty much, I tried to find a good part for a line where it would line up there. That wouldn't be so obvious. Get a little cut there, and I put my little peg spots there, 4 there. Those are the ones I would use for the alignment, and then glue that all, stuck that all together. As you see, the body would sit on here. There's no holes here. Right now, when the model it just sits there. And it's okay because now I can be able to transport. If I go to conventions or go somewhere else, I can take the top off and then put it back on top, nice and neatly. And then you have a movable position. Whereas if you did glue it all together, then you stuck having to have the whole mannequin or the model in one piece. And then that would be difficult for, I guess, transporting or doing whatever you want to do. Unless you have a permanent home for it, then by all means, glue it together. Do what you want. I'd say. We're going to jump over to the technical part of this whole video, is the lighting, which is pretty straightforward. Originally, I got LED lights, which was able to do was remote control, so I could change the lights or change, be able to basically turn it on and off without opening the head part, right? And that wasn't good because you have these lights that are pretty spread apart. If you got ones that are like maybe closer together, would probably be better. But still, I don't think it was the best option. So as you see, here is the visor. Here was the original one that I put in there, and the lights in here the lights over here were just not really that great. And this was probably this is probably the second or third visor I printed. Again, this was a troublesome pain. So the file itself does not come with a notch for the lights. Like, as you can see here, I went and cut this part. I went ahead on the next version. I did cut this section out in Tinkercad, pretty basic program. If you have access to a more complex version, probably be good, because even when I re-rendered it, it kind of lost some of its smoothness, but not that bad. So this is the original version. I just cut this, notched this out, and as you can see, I was a little hasty and went and plastic welded this in there in place, and then I put this on and realized it was not that great. So we skipped that, went on and found this lighting, this cob lighting, right, that we talked about. And anywhere you see this copper soldering place, let me see where, get a little focus on there, right there. Anywhere you cut here, you can just resolder. You can run the line, get some wires, run a little line further away, or overlapping. This is pretty much what I did. It was one of these. Get some scissors and I'll show you real quick. So if you just cut right there on the line, what I did was then get a little strip of wire, and then
I'm gonna come in there and I'm gonna put my foot in your ass and you say and then again.
And I was solder a piece here to those lines, so negative negative, positive positive, right? And I pretty much just stacked them just like that, right, inside the visor, and that's where you're seeing. So there we go. So those will go in there, slip those in place, kind of just tape this into place, and then run them over here. They come out the side over here, and that way the battery pack is able to sit inside the head. If you download this file, the file, again, doesn't have a slot really big enough for the battery pack, so you do have to cut it. Otherwise, you can do it before you print it, and then also save some material by cutting out a notch for your space for the head in the file itself, right? And that is the most technical part of this whole video. Now let's jump over to the part where you guys are probably wondering, well, how much will all this cost and how much time will it take me? So let's run through the numbers. So we're going to take this step by step, really quick, through the colors and through the sections, and then it's going to show you how much material here and the time for each section here. So we got the yellow, we got the blue, we get the red visor. Oh, I forgot to mention that the red visor color here is transparent red, or translucent red. So grab translucent red. I forgot about that. If I didn't mention that before, translucent red. Okay, so red visor. The skin color, terracotta for the hair, black, and red. And as far as the pegs goes, I just threw it into the black here. That's pretty much the total here for like all the pegs. There's not a lot of material, so whatever material I had in the printers at the time, I just printed some pegs, right? Okay, so yellow, total yellow you're gonna need is over 6 spools, so 6,049. Blue, total of 7233. So about 8 spools you're gonna need. The red visor, 11 grams. So hopefully you have some lying around. If not, you gotta buy a spool for that. Skin, 147 grams. Again, not a little bit, but basically one spool. Was it terracotta, the 483? About half a spool, 483 for the hair. And again, guys, the numbers here, the quantities, the amount, that is including the supports. So this number here is the full number of the cost of the supports plus the actual part, right? Black, it's a total of 110 grams. Hopefully you should probably have some black lying around, so that wouldn't be too bad for you. And then red, a total of whopping 17 grams. Again, hopefully you have some red lying around. Otherwise, that's another spool. So you got one. So a total of 14,000 grams, 14,000, a little over 14,000 grams, basically, right? Round up, so you got like about 15 spools. So that's, if we did that number here, let's see, can I scroll over? There we go. Okay, so that's one spool, one spool, one spool, one, 8, and 7. You're looking at 20 different spools of filament. We're going to do the math based off of the 14,000 as far as the cost of this goes into the cost of making Scott. Like if you do, if you make like a hamburger, we just sat down at dinner, we're trying to figure out the cost of making a hamburger and fries and a drink at home versus going out to dinner. So again, when you're making the items, you don't cost it at the pack of hamburgers, right? You're making, you cost it at each individual patty, right? So anyway, we're gonna go over to the section here. This is the breakdown. This is my little spreadsheet for everything I make. So I have little drop downs for all the stuff that I use, and that pretty much, there's a roll up page that does the math for me, right? So I pulled the math. So filament, again, 14,050 grams, total of $281. $281 just for the filament. Glue, when I say glue, I mean Loctite. The Loctite glue, crazy glue, that's pretty much the only glue, really strong glue I use, other than using, for other material I use, bonding, quick set bond. And then 3D glue. 3D glue is really the backbone of all the gluing here for Scott. And I use the full bottle, almost a full bottle of glue, so I just rounded it up for that. So $9 for glue, $35, and this is not even including tax on the material, right? So this is probably like $285. When I put the numbers in, I put in what it cost, actual cost plus the taxes and everything. So this is more like probably like almost $10, I would say. 3D glue is $35 for the bottle. Again, shipping and everything. So actually, I need. Here we go. So I adjusted for the shipping and everything. So it's really $42 for a bottle of glue, right? And so $35 you see on the thing does not include the tax, and shipping and everything. So it's really $42 for that. Sandpaper. That's going to be for your 3D gloop. You need to sand the parts. Well, the instruction says sand the parts, so I follow the instructions. Sand each side of the parts. So one sheet of sandpaper, 40 cents. The lights, $15, right? If there wasn't a sale. So I put it in, I always cost it as if there wasn't a sale, so in case I miss a sale. So $15. Brings you down. And then, so we figured out the total print time, 349 hours. Is the total, and I cost it as $1.25. Some people will charge more, some people will charge less. So this is what I charge, $1.25 an hour for my printers. That comes out to $436.25. Material costs, this is the total cost up here, $347.40 just on materials. And then I add 30% markup on the materials. Again, you have to cost it out of whatever you feel like costing it out as material markup. You can go lower, you can go higher, whatever suits you fancy. So $104. Not going to break the bank, but it does make a little bit of difference. And then labor. So 5 hours. I put in for 5 hours here. I could probably bring it down to like 4 hours. Save you a little money here, but then it brings you down to a full total cost of $1,037.87. This is a price you could probably adjust and play around with if you're trying to sell it. If you're doing it for yourself, how much would it cost to build the thing? And then as far as 349 hours, that brings you down to 24 hours in a day, right? 14 and a half hours, 14 and a half days, excuse me, 14 and a half days. And that's if you were printing nonstop on one printer. So I have 7 printers, and they pretty much ran nonstop. And I also have an H2D, which allowed me to be able to print the shorts. If you had to split up the shorts a little more, add like a day here. Pretty much a day or add a half a day to your time here. So you're looking at almost 15 consecutive nonstop days. That means you caught the printer every time it finished printing, swapped it out nonstop, 15 days. So there is the math for Scott.
Well, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode of Make It Nerdy and talking about life-size models. Scott here was an undertaking. It was a mad rush. As soon as I got the files, I knew this was getting dropped a couple of months or weeks out from Yaw Studios. And as soon as this dropped, I was full steam ahead printing it. Again, I'm not sure if I mentioned it because we're doing this before I record the other parts, right? When I started printing it in full attempts to actually print everything and then paint it. Kind of like how War Turtle's here. He's fully painted. He's all nice. Got all the paint, got all the sanding and everything else. And if you're not sure about how I went about doing all the painting, I'll have a link up top of my video of my step-to-step process of prepping everything before we get to painting. So as far as Scott here, you know, we talked about the materials, we talked about the printers I use, we talked about the visor and everything here. Again, make sure you guys click on the link down below to grab all the colors and the materials I use to go ahead and about printing Scott and assembling him all together. I know I've been a little hiatus of making long form videos. I've been kind of crunching with other things, so let me know in the comments down below what you want to see next. If you guys are interested in seeing some other things, I also have the Galinda cosplay that I did recently. Maybe I'll have a picture of me here walking around that I did over at MegaCon and all the stuff in there. If you guys are interested in that, let me know in the comments down below. I'll give you a step-by-step of everything I went into that outfit. That was fun with my buddy Rico. And hopefully see you guys next time on another episode of Make It Nerdy. Until next time, keep making it nerdy.